Leftover gases from the burnt mixture are pulled out through a system of exhaust pipes, through the muffler and out the tailpipe at the rear of the automobile. These gases contain carbon monoxide, which is poisonous. That's why you should never run your automobile inside a garage or closed structure. Running out in the open, the carbon monoxide can't build up to dangerous levels. The muffler is just there to deaden the noise of the escaping gases. Now you're beginning to understand how your car runs and why there are so many hoses, pumps, and filters under the hood. Fuel, coolant, and air all have to get into the system, be pumped through the system, and be filtered to be as clean as possible. We understand how the automobile is powered by the gasoline and air mixture, but there are a lot of other things on your car that require power, and that other power is supplied by electricity. Now, just a quick review of 7th grade science class about electricity. A force, usually a magnet, starts a chain reaction where the electrons in a molecule get a positive charge. They bump the next molecule to a positive charge, and so on in a chain reaction, as long as there is a row of suitable electrons and they have a place to end up. This continuous row of suitable molecules is called a circuit, and whether the molecules are suitable depends on whether they will conduct this movement. Metal is a good conductor of electricity. Rubber is a poor conductor. That's why most wires to conduct electricity are made of metal with rubber around them. The function of switches and fuses is to make or break circuits. Often, when you switch something on, what you're really doing is moving a bit of metal in line to complete a circuit, and the thing you were turning on then gets electrical power. A fuse is a safety link in the chain. You might think of it as the weakest link. So if a sudden surge of power comes through the line, the fuse will blow or burn out quickly, cutting the circuit and preventing the wire or electrical device from catching on fire. So when you turn your key in the ignition, you move a wire into position to complete a circuit, and the power starts to flow from the battery to the starter motor. The starter turns the crankshaft, which starts the piston action inside the cylinders. Once your engine is running, it turns a belt attached to it and also to the alternator, which uses the turning movement to create electric current. One of the places the alternator sends electricity is to the ignition coil. The coil amplifies the electricity and sends it into something called a distributor. The distributor sends the electricity to the spark plugs. So if you have a 4-cylinder engine, you have 4 spark plugs and 4 wires coming out of the distributor or electronic ignition system to distribute the electricity to them. Electric power from the alternator is wired to the fuse block, where current is distributed to your lights, radio, clock, windshield wipers, and so on. Most automobiles have a fuse box located somewhere under the dashboard inside the passenger area. Replacing fuses is easy to do and cheaper than getting a new radio. So if some electrical part fails, the first thing to do is check to see if a fuse is blown. So now we have your engine running, exploding really. We've got the fuel and air mixture going in, getting the spark for the explosion, the heat and noise under control. We've even got your electricity running your radio and your clock. But how does the car go faster and slower, or even backwards? The acceleration of the automobile is managed by the transmission system. There are 2 kinds of transmissions: manual, where you shift gears yourself with a gear shift lever and a clutch, and automatic transmission, where the shifting of gears takes place automatically. How fast the car goes and in which direction depends on which gear is engaged. When it comes to automobiles, when you think about it, it's difficult to decide which is more important, going or stopping. If your brakes fail at the wrong time, You could kill yourself and other people in a horrible accident. So how exactly do brakes do what they do? When you press on the brake pedal, you force brake fluid out of the master cylinder. The master cylinder is under the hood. It has two compartments full of fluid. Each compartment has lines leading out. One side goes to the rear wheels, one to the front. The reason for the two compartments is simply to have a backup. Any loss of brake fluid will be from the lines or wheel cylinders, not from the master cylinder. So if one set of brake lines fails, the other will still stop the car. The brake fluid travels through the brake lines to the wheels. Most automobiles have drum brakes in the rear and disc brakes in the front. Here's how the rear drum brakes work. Inside the wheel are two brake shoes that have special friction material linings. When the fluid arrives in the wheel area, it flows into a piston. The fluid pushes the piston outward, which pushes the brake shoes out against the drum, and the brake lining creates friction on the wheel that forces the wheel to stop turning. The friction and heat causes brake linings to wear out, and they will have to be replaced periodically. If they're not replaced, then the metal part of the brake shoe is trying to stop the wheel, and that will damage both the shoe and the wheel and may prevent you from stopping your car safely. The front disc brakes work a lot like caliper brakes on a 10-speed bicycle, where you squeeze the lever and little calipers come in and press the wheel to a stop. So in the case of disc brakes, when the fluid arrives from the master cylinder, it forces the piston into a caliper, which has two brake pads on it. The pads grab the disc and use friction to stop it, and the wheel stops turning. Now let's let Doug Stoll, award-winning master technician, take us around a car and use what we've just learned to be able to recognize and understand what he's talking about. Doug was chosen Automotive Service Excellence Technician of the Year in 1993. Let's join him at Susquehanna Lube and Auto Clinic, his repair shop in Independence, Missouri.
Okay, the car we've picked today is a 1993 Ford Taurus. We picked this model because it's one of the #1 sellers and one of the largest number of cars on the road today. What we're looking for today inside here is the instrumentation and the controls on this car. Every car is going to be a little different, but all of them generally use the same controls and indicator lights. Okay, you have the seatbelt warning light that just went out, along with the beeper that reminds you to put on your seatbelts. The rest of the lights on the dash will all come on during startup or crank operation. You notice you have to crank the engine before the brake light comes on. When you release the key back to the on position, the brake light goes out. The importance of these lights are warning devices, and the major importance of them is the fact that they're red and yellow. The yellow lights are going to be warning lights, which tells you that you need to get your car serviced in the near future. On the other hand, if a red light comes on while you're driving down the road, it's a danger light. You should pull over as soon as you can, notice which light it is, and shut the car off. Any further operation with that red light on could cause some major damage to the engine components. If there's any more questions on your lighting, your owner's manual will explain it thoroughly, or you could ask your service technician, and he would be glad to help you out. The next thing that we want to discuss is the underhood of the vehicle. This being a 93 Ford Taurus is going to be real similar to most cars on the road. Some of the objects will look a little bit different, but the major function of them will all be the same. Right now we want to cover the cooling system of this automobile. We're going to start off with the radiator, which is going to always set at the front of the car, which receives airflow to keep the coolant temperature cooled off. From the radiator, connected with hoses,